I'm going to teach you probably one of the most powerful things that you can do in DaVinci Resolve. It's called Magic Mask. This is specifically on Studio, and frankly, in my opinion, Magic Mask is worth the cost of DaVinci Resolve Studio alone because it's such a cool tool. Let me show you how it works. Have you ever wondered how people use DaVinci Resolve to edit together shorts? Well, today you're going to find out some of the easiest ways to do it and how to use some very basic functions in DaVinci Resolve. This tutorial is designed for people who maybe have a little bit of editing skill but haven't necessarily used a lot of DaVinci Resolve or are new to DaVinci Resolve Studio. We're going to be using DaVinci Resolve Studio, so some of the features and functions may not work on the free version, but a lot of them will. So, I'm editing a video for the Biker Lawyers PC. These guys are an awesome law firm out of Cedar Rapids, and part of the video strategy is explaining things that legally most people don't know or should know. And so we found that the best way to do that is using shorts. So the concept for today is removal for cause, and what that is basically when they're doing jury selection, there are certain ways that you can get jury members removed from the jury pool that you feel might be detrimental to your case. Now this has the potential to be a rather boring subject, so our job is to make it a little bit punchier, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the video clip, and we want it to be under a minute, and the reason for that is we want it to work on not only TikTok but also YouTube Shorts, Reels, basically any short form video content. So the first thing you do is you find the clip that you have, you add it into the actual media pool here, and then you make sure that your setting up here, your resolution is actually set to portrait mode, which this one is. I've put it on the timeline. That's all I've done so far. We're going to go ahead and play through and figure out where we might want to add in cuts, if there's certain things that we can cut out to shorten it because shorter videos perform better, that sort of thing. Now, I've taken the liberty to save us some time of creating bins. Bins are essentially folders in DaVinci Resolve, and the way that you create them is just right click and go new bin. And one of them holds all of my B-roll, which is one video transition and a bunch of images, which I will actually turn into video, essentially, by adding motion movement. We'll cover that in this video. The other one is my sounds. I only have 3 sounds that I want to use. One is a transition swoosh, and 2 of them are explosions, and I'll get to that in a moment as well. So, and then in the master, we obviously have the actual video itself. So now that it's been added in, we're going to go ahead and go through and just listen to the first part so you can see where I want to cut something out that doesn't necessarily need to be there, that'll save time.
16 people get seated and both lawyers get to question them. You're going to end up with a jury of 8. Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
So the thing to know here is that he's talking about the peremptory challenge and he's talking about removal for cause. These are 2 different issues. The second half of this part of the video is going to be about removal for cause. So because I've already done a short about the peremptory challenge, we're going to find the best logical place to place a cut to take out some of this that we maybe don't need, an earlier place we can jump in. The other issue that I have with the original footage, is that because we use Smart Reframe, which is this feature right over here in DaVinci Resolve, it reframed it and followed his face, but unfortunately it made the footage a little jumpy and I don't know, just it's not as professional as we want. So I'm going to show you how we can cover that with B-roll to still make it really emotionally compelling and engaging. So I know that I want to make a cut. We're going to go all the way back a little bit here. And we talk about
16 people get seated and both lawyers get to question them. You're going to end up with a jury of 8. Each lawyer.
So you're going to end up with a jury of 8. And you'll notice there's a natural pause there, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. All you have to do a quick cut is hit Control B, and that's the blade, right? And then you can hit, you can do Control Shift, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a bunch of shortcut keys, which I can get to that in another video if you want. But ultimately, I have a button because I'm using the DaVinci Resolve Editor keyboard that's Ripple Delete, and so that'll delete the chunk right before. So now the new beginning of the video is this.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
Okay, so he's explained now what the peremptory challenge is, and we're jumping to the interviewer asking the question that we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the frame that's right before that, and we've been in the Cut tab. We're going to jump over to the Edit tab, and a quick way to do that, at least on my keyboard, I'm hoping you can do it on yours, is Shift 4, jumps you over to the edit tab. Anything you can do to reduce keystrokes is going to save you a lot of time. But we get right in there to this part, and there's a little bit of a moment where they talk over each other, but that's okay. So what we do here, we know we want to cut across here, so we're going to hit Control B again to add the blade, and then we're going to add in a transition. Now I have over here my toolbox, it's already open, so I've clicked on effects up here and it added this in. So I have some of my favorites that I've picked. Now I'm going to pop back over to the cut tab for a minute here to show you something. Up here we have transitions, we have effects, we have titles. So transitions, if you put a star by any one of these, it automatically will save them to your favorites. So if you have ones that you really like, that you feel like you're super professional, that you like to use, you can save them to favorites by adding a star. When you do that, when you're in the edit tab, they show up down here, and that's super duper helpful. Now you'll also notice it has a lot of effects that I've also got saved down here, not just the transitions, which is also helpful. So there's a few different things. I can scroll through all of this, but if I'm on the cut tab, it's a lot easier if I just click on favorites up here. And then I have push, I have foreground wipe, and you'll notice as I drag it across here, it's showing me what this is going to look like. And this is actually the transition that I was hoping to use. So we're going to drop this down on the timeline. I'm actually going to shorten this up so there's not a lot of crossfade in here. And then we're going to play it to see how it sounds.
Challenge. Is there
okay, so that's the peremptory challenge. And then is there, since he says is there for a second and the word challenge gets cut off a little bit, I'm making it a little bit longer, so let's see how it looks.
Is there
see how fast that is?
Peremptory challenge. Is there
So it's just enough to show that there's a transition. Now here's a nice little hack for you. All I did to do that was drop that down, hit foreground wipe, drop it down here, and then I grab the edge of the corner of it here and I drag that open or closed. Another nice thing to know here is when you're adding transitions is that up here I always have the inspector tab open. This is called the inspector tab. By default it's not open. I almost always have it open. When you hit this inspector tab, whatever you're selected, whatever's orange here, you can edit. So I can change my border width and make it so that there's a wider border on it. I can change how soft the shadow is. I can change how, so there's all these little things that you can tweak and change. So you see how we've got this line here that shows you what the transition is? I can go through and tweak that to change it up however I want. It's like that for literally just about anything in DaVinci Resolve that you use. The inspector tab will let you play with it. And then you can pop over to, if you click on this, I can click on video and I can transform by zooming. I can do dynamic zoom, which I use a lot. You can change the speed here. You can freeze it. You can change the audio and make a voice deeper or lighter, whatever you want to do. So the inspector tab is your favorite place. Now, what I need to do, here's where I'm going to add a sound effect. Anytime you add a transition or you have text pop up that is not normally popped up, especially in long form video, sounds really do help with the retention hacking, because that's what it's all about, is grabbing people's attention and hacking it every couple of seconds. So we pop back over to the edit tab. I'm going to go into my sounds folder. I've got a transition swoosh here. We're going to drop this down on the second line, and you'll notice that this is how long the transition is. I do not want the sound to be overwhelming, so if I just drag it until I see the little arrows, I can drop that down quite a bit. Maybe tighten it up a tiny bit here, and let's see how this looks and sounds.
Challenge. Is there...
See, it's just subtle enough. It's a woof. So it's just subtle enough to emphasize the transition, to setting up the intro. This is a peremptory challenge. Now let's talk about the other part of it.
Business opinions. So you walk them down the line. They're not going to listen to anybody else. These are their opinions. And
so he's going on about what poisonous opinions are, right?
This is how they're wired, and they're not going to be able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to strike them for cause.
Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but the way that the camera panned down a little bit, I don't like that. We're going to get rid of that just a second.
Wired, and they're not going to be able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to strike them for cause because they've demonstrated bias towards some of the issues in your case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person would be excused from the 16-person panel, and now you've still retained your 4 peremptory type of challenges.
So that's the end of the video. What you may have noticed, I hope you did, was that there was a lot of choppiness, right? The reason for that is Pete has a really cool way of talking when you're sitting in the room with him, where he really thinks through what he wants to say. And that is great for a conversation. It really comes across as He knows what he's talking about. He's really thinking things through. The problem is that's not good for shorts. So a lot of times I have to cut out those sounds. I have to cut out any of the silence. You got to cut that stuff. And although, because of his speech pattern being as unique as it doesn't hurt the overall sound. Obviously, it's not great for the visuals when you can tell that there's been hard cuts here, there, and the other. Now, there are transitions you can use. Smooth cut is one of them, where if you tighten it really tight, it'll do a really smooth transition, and you won't even tell sometimes. However, Pete's also a very animated guy, so he's moving his head around a lot, and that's why the tracking was a little off. So what I'm going to use is B-roll to cover that up. So if I click into the B-roll one I had here, I told you I had set aside some B-roll. And what I did was, before I wanted to edit this, I knew I wanted a bunch of jurors. I wanted an empty jury seat. I wanted this little footage here of a judge, see? Now, one of the things that you can do here too is, if I double click on this, now, and actually we get rid of the inspector tab, right? I double click on this, and now I'm actually editing this part up here. And I can put in an in and an out point, whatever I want. And this is actually two different. So you've got a judge just watching, thinking, looking, and yeah. And then it cuts to a second B-roll of going up from the bench and him paying attention and nodding and writing down, taking notes, okay? So the one that I want is him listening to what's being said and considering it. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, we want the endpoint of this. So all you have to do to add an endpoint is hit I, and then we'll scroll on. He's going to nod. There you go. And consider it, and we're going to say out. So now we have this clip is nearly ready. See how up here on the clip it actually shows the two in and out points? That is edits that I've made to this clip that I can add on anytime. And what I want to do now is find the part where he says you can ask the judge to remove it. There you go. So we're right about here. Let's see what it says.
Bias towards some of the issues in your case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge...
Okay. So if you've adequately demonstrated their bias. So now we can go like this, and then when you drag this across, now that I've made the in and out points on here, I can pick it up, drag it across, and if you hover here, you can pick any one of these. You can insert it, you can overwrite, you can replace. What you want to do is hit place on top. So that now puts it on top where the marker was. So now what it's going to show, see how it's small here? We're going to go ahead and open up the inspector tab because now we're working over here. And see how it's small there, and we don't want it just to block out his face, right? What we really want is for it to be even closer. There's a few ways that you can do this. You can actually go into Open Effects, and you can do you can add on a filter on top of that. But what I like to do is just click on this, and then click Zoom, and bring it all the way in as far as I can. So we got that, and actually, here's a fun little trick too. If I hit Dynamic Zoom, it's going to start really close, and I might even go down a little bit, so I'm using the Y-axis to bring that down. And then it goes like this.
Or case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person would...
See, now he's just nodded yes, like that makes sense, right? So now, if I've got almost too much here.
From the 16-person panel.
And then it's going to drop it off, right? So what we're going to do is go...
That person would be...
Now that he's nodding, that's where we want to stop it. So we've got it added in at the perfect spot.
And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person...
So, grant that, and he nods.
Grant that.
So where he says that, so I'm going to go ahead and hit... Again, I've got this clicked, not these two, but this one clicked. I'm going to hit Control-B to cut that out. And then I'm going to click on this piece that I want to get rid of, and I'm going to hit Delete, and it's going to delete that one. So now, and I may actually end up making the zoom go down a little bit more so we see the top of his head a little bit better. You want to keep the eye line right about thirds, the rule of thirds. So, let's see how this looks.
Case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person...
So I feel like he could have nodded a little longer. So here's what you can do is you can just bring this over just a little bit to there because he's nodded a few more times. And since we know now that that's going to be a little bit longer of a clip, we're going to bring him over here a little bit more, and let's see what happens.
In your case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person would be excused from the 16-person...
Now, I'm going to teach you probably one of the most powerful things that you can do in DaVinci Resolve. It's called Magic Mask. This is specifically on Studio, and frankly, in my opinion, Magic Mask is worth the cost of DaVinci Resolve Studio alone because it's such a cool tool. Let me show you how it works. Here's what we're going to do. So we're going to take and we're going to add a cut here. And then
be excused from the 16-person panel.
Okay, and then add a cut here, Control B. All right, so now I'm going to zoom out a little bit using this right here. And if I click this little piece here and I hold the Alt key, I can drag this up. And what that does is it makes a copy of it. Now you'll notice it did also duplicate the sound. So you want to make sure that you either delink these or you mute this one here, because if you don't have this muted, it'll boost up the sound quite a bit, and you don't want that. So now we've got two different things. It's the same clip, it's just one on top of the other, right? So then I can zoom in to make sure I've got it right. Now this one right here zooms into the point. So this is the full timeline, boom. This one zooms into the point that we're editing, right? So now I've got just this part, it's all lined up okay. I can zoom in a little bit more just to make absolutely sure it is, okay. So now I can move my playhead right about here. And then I'm going to go over to the color tab, okay? For those of you following along with quick keys, it's Shift-6, pops me over the color tab. Now you'll notice on this timeline, I still have this top one highlighted, right? That's great. So what you want to do on here is you want to click this one. This is Magic Mask. I like to do it all as object. I haven't found much of a difference in object or person mask, but believe it or not, object mask is the one that I found works the best, okay? And it used to be that you would have to add a bunch of keyframes specifically to know what you wanted the camera to track. But with Magic Mask, I literally just go like this. Okay, that's what I want, right? And then I give it a second, and it starts masking. I can see what it's masked by clicking this right here. This is the Mask Overlay. And if I click on Mask Overlay, it'll turn it red, and that shows me what all has been masked. Now, to be on the safe side, what I like to do is if I hold the Alt key, you'll see that my little dropper gets a negative sign by it. And now I can say, okay, this I don't want you to track. No matter what, this red stuff, or this up here, don't track it, okay? So now I've told it what I want us to track and what I don't want us to track. I'm noticing that there's a little spot here that should be tracked that isn't. And then what you do is you just hit this right here. And this right here is going to go from where we are right now in that top clip on the top and bottom, and it is going to mask that entire little clip. Boom. Okay. Then what we do is you, up here in this area, you right click and you go Add Alpha Output, drag that over to here. And now what you've done, or what I've done, what we've done together, is we've basically created an alpha of just this. So everything that wasn't selected and wasn't tracked will actually be able to have something behind it. Let me show you. So we're going to pop back over to the Edit tab, or Shift-4. And now this little blank space, I left that blank for a reason. What I've decided that I want to do, we're going to move this over a little bit, zoom out a little so we can see what we're working on, is I want to drop these jury benches in here. Boom. Okay? And I'm going to shorten this up. Okay? Now, you notice it's in the background. That's what I wanted. I want it in the background. But it's not exactly where I want it. I want to zoom in so it's all right behind him. And I want it animated. So here's how we're going to do that. If you go to the Cut tab, you select the piece that you want to play with. It's this one right here. We want the benches, right? And then you click on this guy right here. This is your tools, okay? Then you click on this. This is your dynamic zoom. And then you turn them on, and they have 4 different preset dynamic zooms. We want to go this way. It's pan preset, okay? And what's going to happen, if you turn off tools, you'll see it, but watch this.
And would be excused from the 16-person panel, and now you've still retained your 4.
So now we go like this. We go from the judge.
The judge is going to grant that. That person would be excused from the 16-person panel, and now you've still retained your 4 peremptory type of challenges.
See how that works? So now what we've done is that mask has now masked out enough of the background that you can show empty seats to show that they've been removed. Now, a general rule is always show, don't tell. right? So you essentially want to think of your A role, if you will, which is the main interview, as the narrator, and you want to find ways to tell that story more creatively. So the next part of this, what we're going to do is we're going to pop over and go all the way back to the beginning. So that part I wanted to throw in so I could show you a few different things about how to cover crappy edits essentially with that. Now, what I would like to do is I'd like to actually not have it just be a hard cut of the judge coming in. So the way that we're going to do that, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the audio here so that you don't have to listen every time I scroll. Well, maybe not. There we go. So this way, now when I scroll, you don't have to listen. All I did to mute it, by the way, was click down here. So then what we want to do is, there's a few different ways to do this. In DaVinci Resolve, there's a few ways to do everything. Shift forward puts me in the Edit tab, and you can either drag this little guy here to fade in, or you can add in a transition effect. And earlier I showed you how to do the swiping transition. One of the other ones that I really like is push. I think push is a good one. Film strip is kind of cool. So we're going to go with push. I'm going to put that on here. So what that's going to do is that's going to literally make him slide in, right? But I can also do, again, I've got my inspector tab open, so I could do push left, push right, push up, push down, whatever I want. It happens that push left is exactly what I'm going for, but I can also hit feather here. And the reason that's kind of a good idea is because then you can have a little bit of motion blur to it, and it just looks a little cleaner, I think. You can also add a border if you want, and actually if we get rid of the motion blur and we just add the border, what's happening now is it's blurring over, which I really like that. So let me show you how this looks now. And he's panning out because we did our dynamic zoom. He's agreeing, and boom. Now it's swapping over to this. This is another example of where we can add our push. And so this time what it'll do is it'll go from our nodding judge to the panels very seamlessly. But it brought him in too. He just pops in, right? And I don't know how I feel about that, so maybe we won't. Maybe we will have it be a hard cut there. So Control Z lets you undo whatever you just did. So you could also do a fade out. That's another good way to do it, is you do fade out and fade in, which is just this right here. There's also a fade transition you can use. So let's see how that looks, if I like that. Not a huge fan though, honestly. So we'll just make it a hard cut. That works. Boom. Yeah, that works. So that's what we've got going on so far. Is we've got this going on. We've got him pushed in, blah, 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 blah. So I'm popping over the cut tab so I can fly all the way back here, and we will unmute it. And
each lawyer can...
So I've got each lawyer, okay? So what I might do here is go back to my media pool. And again, this is stuff that you can actually add this in from the edit tab or the cut tab. But I knew that I was going to have each lawyer, and I wanted to have two different lawyers asking questions. So I have two different lawyers here. I've got this guy up here, and I've got this guy. So each lawyer, so we're going to go like this, and I'm literally just going to drag this over. Oh, I forgot I've got the inspector on. If I drag this over, oh, I guess I can only do that on the edit tab. Oh well, you can drop it down on top. That's what I'm getting at. So now, do we want to use Magic Mask, or do we want to just have this pop in? I think personally that this would be a little bit more, I don't know, impactful, if you will, if we have it be the full screen just for this part. So I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to go our little panning thing that we talked about. Oop, wrong one. Boom. Each lawyer
can...
So we're cutting from this guy. We know that guy's a lawyer now, and then we've got another lawyer we're going to bring in, which is this one. And we're going to zoom in the same thing. Now you can see exactly, I had it 3.260 is how much this first one was zoomed. So if I want to be precise, I can do that up here too. 3.260 and hit enter, and it will change my X and Y for me as well. And For this one, I also would like to have it pan. But what I'm going to do is reverse it. So it's going to be like one goes in one side, the other goes in the other side. So we're going to go swap, and let's see how this looks.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4.
Now it's obviously not going to go that far. We're going to do it right about there so they have about the same amount of space.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors.
Now, it didn't really go over far enough, I found. I don't think that really goes over far enough. So what we need to do is we need to move the position over so it starts on that side. So it's going to go like this, and this one will swap. Here's how we solve the problem. Watch.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors.
So I like the word eliminate. So eliminate 4 jurors. So what I'm going to do with this one is going to be kind of interesting. And this is completely experimental. I don't know how well this is going to work. I'm hoping it'll work very well. But my idea was we're going to put this on here. We're going to zoom it in. We're going to move it over. Okay. And I wanted to get 4 jurors on the screen at once. And so maybe we need to zoom in a little bit like this. There we go. That'll work. So we've got 4 jurors. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, and I know that there's probably an easier way to do this, but this is how I'm going to do it. One of the things that I've used for B-roll is this explosion, and I really like this explosion. I don't even know why. I just really like it. But I thought, how cool would it be if I figured out a way to crop this out, go cropping, left, right, and then move it over and up to literally show it as if we're eliminating 1. And then essentially what I was thinking we would do is this over and over again. I know this is going to sound weird, but and again, I know there's probably an easier way, but 2, 3, 4. And the idea is now that we put this on each juror's face, and maybe just to change it up a bit, we flip it. And then this one we're going to move over. Maybe. I don't know if it'll let me. I think I froze it. Well, to be fair, oh, maybe not. There we go. Okay, so the second one is that one, which is what it was supposed to be. The third one, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's not letting me do it. Interesting. Okay, so there it is. Okay. That's the problem. So I did have it, but my playhead wasn't far enough down the line for us to actually even see it. That's why. I was like, where did it go? So now what we need to do is move this over, and we're going to say and for this one we'll shrink it down a little bit maybe. So it's just his face. And for the last one, we'll move the playhead over far enough and move it over as well. Shrink it down a lot because this is going to be this lady over here. So ideally what should happen, I'm hoping, is it'll blow away each of them. And then as they disappear, now we'll have our swoosh, right? So I'm going to shorten these all the way down to where our transition is. So the idea now is that we'll have 4 different explosions where we quote-unquote eliminate each of these jurors for no reason at all. And we can actually see if we jump to the playhead how that's going to look best. And if we want to not worry about how much of the thing is left over, I can actually fade it out like this a little bit. So this should be one explosion after another. Ready?
4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the perimeter.
For no reason at all. That's where I want it to fade out, actually. So now I'm going to show you one more great effect, is that if we take this one down here and we go to back to effects, right? We go under filters, nope, I'm sorry, under effects. You can scroll for it to find it. I actually already have mine saved to favorites, but I have one that I really like that is where's that? Flickr Edition. Flickr Edition is great for old-fashioned looking stuff. So
and eliminate 4 jurors
1,
for
2,
no reason at
3,
all.
4.
That's the peremptory challenge.
So now I want to add sound effects to all of this. So we have 4 different explosions, right? And there's a way that we can mark this so that we can keep an eye on things. It's this little guy right here. So we know that the first explosion sound should be right about there, right? So we're going to go mark there, and then I'm going to go right about here. Where's the second explosion? Right there. I'm going to mark there. Third explosion. And we're going to move that one out a little bit so he comes on a little bit sooner. And we're going to mark that one right about there. And then the last explosion, it starts back there. And here's where we add a little bit of sound layering. And I go back to here where I've got my sounds. I go to explosion sounds. And there's a couple of different explosions I have here. I have this one. And I have this one, which I really like. And this one I like because it sounds like it has several explosions anyway. So the hard way of doing it is to add each of these 2 sounds for each of those explosions. Adding this will just cover the whole thing for me. And so that's kind of what I want to do. You'll notice it actually has several different lines that it shows. So this is the one we're going to use. We're going to put it in right about here. And the reason I'm putting it in that far is because I'm going to cut the beginning of it to right about where that first starts, and I'm looking at that, and you see how it has these different jumping in lines and whatever. And then what we want to do is bring the entire sound down a little bit because you don't want it to go over Pete's voice, and we want it to fade out. So this is what it should look like ideally.
Eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
Is there other way?
See what I mean? So as funny as that looked and sounded, it worked out well, I think.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors.
Eliminate, I want to have Pete show up a little bit better, so.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
Is there...
Now, I know that he's about to start telling a story about a juror who's argumentative, essentially. And so I have this one, and I have this one. So I've got this one, which is already pre-cut. It's just jurors, right? And that's the one, since we're just talking about jurors right now and not necessarily how troublesome they are. But watch this. We're going to say
ways to get rid of
jurors. So we're going to drop this on top. Now, actually, I have to be careful here because if you remember, I actually have a lot of edits over here, and I don't want to accidentally go over them. So we're going to drop this in, and obviously this isn't showing. It's not that long, so I'm not worried about it. But we want this to fade in and fade out, so.
Jurors that are potentially.
And this is boring, so we're going to go dynamic zoom. And now you'll notice this time all I did was click dynamic zoom over here. And it should start big and then go small.
Jurors that are potentially an issue, let's say.
Now he's saying an issue, let's say. So it's not going to be very big of a zoom.
Jurors that are potentially an issue, let's say.
Let's say. So now we've got this lady is just arguing, right? And that's what we kind of want. Now, I would love to be able to just show it behind him. Oh, wrong one, sorry.
6 people that you definitely don't want on the jury.
What you're
So there's 6 people you definitely don't want on the jury. So I have This one has a bunch of people standing up and arguing, right? So I'm going to bring this up and put it over here. And we're going to zoom in. And I'm going to pop back over to my cut tab so that I can do that little side animate thing. Let's see what happens.
Say 6 people that you definitely don't want on the jury.
What you're touching.
Now we're going to cut back to him. Right about there.
Initially, let's say 6 people that you definitely don't want on the jury.
What you're touching on is challenges for cause. So
now, having him touch his face isn't necessarily the kind of professional thing. I know I've been playing with my beard the entire video, so ironic, whatever. But having him touch his face isn't exactly something that we want to show because it's a self-soothing gesture and it can take away from the authoritativeness of what he's trying to say. So that would be a good opportunity for us to put something over it. And so I'm going to go ahead and pop this on here. And I'm going to zoom it in. Now the funny thing is, so a lot of these images I actually use AI to generate. I use GPT, but I don't really want to show the lawyer pointing. I just want to show this guy arguing. So we're going to do it like this. And I'm going to add something very interesting. We've got effects here. Now this is, earlier I was showing you the effects in the edit tab. If I come up to the effects here, I have my favorite saved. And I can do watercolor, but one of the ones that I really like, aside from this one, Flickr Edition, is film. And the reason is it looks like film damage. So I do a combination of that and Flickr Edition, and it looks like vintage film. And then what I really want to do here is if I click on this and I go to here and I go to here like I have been with all the dynamic zoom stuff and I turn it on. Now what I can do here, this is really interesting, is I can actually change the in and out points. So where it starts is green, where it stops is red. So if I were just to hit play,
so now I'm questioning
the
the
started there and it's zooming out slowly, right? Well, what if I just wanted to go like this? What if I wanted to take, let's get that out of the way for a minute. Say I wanted to start on this dude and I wanted it to zoom out to the rest of his crew here. Just like that, and maybe I want it to be a little bit bigger on him and his area. So now this is what it's going to look like. So if I turn this off, I can hit play.
Pause. So now I'm questioning.
See, it didn't exactly keep him, and it's the reason is it's a rectangle shape that we're trying to fit it into, and I didn't take that into account. So now I want to go ahead and turn that back on so I can see it again. Turn it off, turn it on, and then realize, oh wait, I guess I do need it to be from the middle of his face. So let's try this again.
Cause. So now I'm questioning the panel of 16 people, and one of them is expressing opinions that are
now we're going to zoom this out a little bit.
Poisonous to the case, and they're very committed to those poisonous opinions.
Okay, so in the media pool, I can say, okay, do I have anything else that's interesting? I have this one. I have... Now, there's an interesting little trick that I can do here also. This image that I had AI generate, it doesn't show... See, it shows a lawyer who looks really... he's arguing right back at this lady and all these people. And so I really like that guy standing up and looking opinionated, and I also like the lawyer looking opinionated. But what we're going to do is we want this guy. So he seems to be our little hero. We're going to zoom into him perfectly, just like that, and then we're going to add him in to the top again, and turn this off so we can see what we're doing. Zoom in, go over, and then I'm going to hit dynamic zoom. We're going to turn that on here and hit swap, because I actually wanted to zoom, start on him and zoom.
So you walk down the line, they're not going to listen.
And I want it to be over a little bit more.
So you walk down the line, they're not going to listen to anybody else. These are their...
So now I know that we're going to be getting to the point where you ask the judge essentially to remove for cause. So now I'm going to get to an angry looking judge, and you'll notice I'm putting this, you can put this on any of the 6 timelines that we've created, or the 6 video lines that we've created. I'm putting it on the second one because I know that this clip that we want to avoid running into is on the first one. So I put it a little bit higher.
Then you can ask the judge to strike them.
See how that's dropped down? That's the part I'm trying to cover. So
able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to strike them for cause.
Now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go dynamic zoom, and it's going to zoom out on you.
Judge to strike them for cause because they've demonstrated bias towards some of the issues.
There goes move the camera up, so I want to bring that out a little bit.
Cause because they've demonstrated bias towards some of the issues in your case. And if you have adequately...
Now, I like the idea of having a transition here, so we're going to go back to transitions. I'm going to go push, but I don't want him to go, this time I want him to go up and down. So we're going to go push and click on a transition and push down. So watch how he comes in now.
And they're not going to be able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to...
And then we're going to go push again, and this time I'm going to have it push down again. So that way he slides back out. And with this part, I really like the idea of maybe having him look a little more like a painting. So if I go effects, you can search for these, by the way, too, in video. Go watercolor. See how that looks like a watercolor painting? Now we do that, and then I can actually come over here back again. I clicked on it, I went to the effects, and I'm on the inspector tab, and I can actually bring this all the way down to 0.1. And so it's just enough of it faded to make it unique, right? And then on top of that, I'm going to add vignette. And then on top of that, I'm going to add flicker addition. So this is what it now looks like.
They're not going to be able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to strike them for cause because they've demonstrated bias towards some of the issues in your case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person would be excused from the 16-person panel, and now you've...
So that's the end of it. Now I can look at my media pool and say, is there anything that I wanted to use that I forgot to use? The answer is no. Is there any other transitions that I wanted to use, like the sounds or anything? The answer is no. So we're good. Now, I'm going to show you a really, really cool trick. So since we have an explosion in there, and it's a really cool explosion, I want to show you a really cool way that you can make a loop on shorts. So this B-roll is designed to go from the bottom up on a landscape style image. So if we just rotate it, if we click on it and then we go to video, we're in the inspector tab, and I just do a rotation angle and change it to 90 degrees. Boom. Now it's that size. Now I blow it up. Boom. Pun intended, right? And then we're going to take this and we're actually going to change the speed. So I came down here to change speed. I'm going to speed this up to about 200%. Okay? And then I'm going to go about halfway through.
Peremptory type of challenges.
So I'm going to go, what I'm really looking for here is for the explosion to be right where his face ends. And here's why. Now I'm going to cut this, then I'm going to hit Control B to cut it, okay? And then I'm going to take this part and I'm actually going to move it all the way up to here. Now, for those of you that didn't catch it, I moved it all the way to this side, and I'm going to speed this part up even more, maybe even to 300%. So now,
each lawyer can eliminate.
So now let me show you what this looks like when we play it all the way through. We're going to do it full screen so you can see.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
Is there other ways to get rid of jurors that are potentially an issue? Let's say 6 people that you definitely don't want on the jury.
What you're touching on is the difference between a peremptory challenge versus challenges for cause. So now I'm questioning the panel of 16 people, and one of them is expressing opinions that are poisonous to the
Now, what I've noticed here just now is that I would rather start with the questioning 16 people. One of them is poisonous, right? So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to reverse it. So we pull this back up and we hit reverse it because I like the idea of starting with these and ending on the guy that's poisonous, right? So now check this out. If we go back to full screen, this is why we do the last minute edits. Hold on. Sorry, I forgot I got to turn this off to see it. Okay. Now watch this.
The panel of 16 people, and one of them is expressing opinions that are poisonous to the case, and they're very committed to those poisonous opinions. So you walk them down the line. They're not going to listen to anybody else. These are their opinions, and this is how they're wired, and they're not going to be able to set it aside. Then you can ask the judge to strike them for cause because they've demonstrated bias towards some of the issues in your case. And if you have adequately demonstrated their bias, the judge is going to grant that. That person would be excused from the 16-person panel, and now you've still retained your 4 peremptory type of challenges. Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason.
So now obviously, since we have an explosion going on there, this is why we wanted to have two of the explosion. Oops, shoot, that's how you add. Anyway, we wanted to have two of the explosions there, right? So I have two sounds here. So we're going to take this explosion and we're going to go back to the edit tab for a minute. We're going to go all the way to the end to where it first starts, and we're going to put the explosion sound down there. Now, since that's the case, let's pop over to the playhead there. Let's go to explosion sounds. Let's pop this bad boy right in here, and we're going to actually have it fade in just the way I want it to. We're going to bring the volume way down so it's in the background. Let's see what it sounds like.
Peremptory type of challenges.
Okay. I want it to be deeper. So we can take semitones. All I did was click on it. It knows it's an audio file, so I go up to semitones and I bring it down a little. Boom, boom, boom. 3%. -3. So let's see how that sounds now.
Peremptory type of challenges.
See, so it went from a high-pitched sound to a boom, heavier, gravelier, right? Let's go 5.
Peremptory type of challenges.
Now, watch this. I'm going to take this, and we're going to cut this again. Control B to cut it with the blade. And then we're going to go back to our full screen, right? And we're just going to drag this all the way across, if it'll let me. Oh, it won't. Haha, that's funny. Oh, I guess, yeah, okay, I see why. Because we're on the full screen. So here's the real kicker is now if I were to do that, it would cover up the sound effects from earlier. And we don't want that, so we're going to move it down here so that it doesn't do that. So let's see how this sounds.
Retain your 4 peremptory type of challenges. Each lawyer can...
Okay, so I still want the sound to be down a little lower. Now, because I'm bringing the sound even more, I need to make sure I do the same up here. I brought it down to 21, so I got to make sure this one is at -21 as well. Now let's see how that sounds now.
Retain your 4 peremptory type of challenges. Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge.
Is there...
There you go. So that's basically what we wanted to do. Now, the step that I'm not going to get into here is captioning. I actually have 2 other videos on that on my channel, so you feel free. I'm sure I can link them down in the description or whatever. But basically, captioning is the thing that's going to take this to that final next level. But now you can see how we've taken what was originally a relatively, no offense, but a little bit boring of a subject that a lot of people would want to know about. And what I'm going to call this is things you never knew, or things you never knew about jury duty, or what a lot of people don't know about jury duty, or how to kick people off jury duty, something along those lines. So let's see what it looks like as a final run through, and then I thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it helpful.
Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors for no reason at all. That's the peremptory challenge. Peremptory type of challenges. Each lawyer can eliminate 4 jurors
Seamless.
for no reason at all.
The only other thing I'm going to change here, which I wasn't going to, but I'm going to now, is I like the idea of, since we have it kind of being cartoony, with these, I'm going to add the watercolor filter to those as well, just for consistency. I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for us to have. So I'm going to go through and basically add this to all of them, dropping it down just enough that it's watercolor filtered. The only thing that I want to be real is our 2 actual speakers and the explosions. Even the judge, I'm going to add that on. So I won't make you stick around and watch me do that, but essentially all I'm doing is dragging and dropping the filters on and then moving them to what they need to be as far as the smoothness goes. But that's it. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch. If you liked it, subscribe and all that fun stuff. I would really appreciate the subscriptions, because why not? I mean, that's why you do YouTube, right? Is so you can get subscriptions. So thank you and have a great day.